Hello, I'm Jonasz Rewiński and you're watching Break the Fake. They make them, we break them, and tell you everything you need to know. It seems that a new season has begun at the Kremlin's fake news factory. The scriptwriters have come up with another story so wild that even Brazilian soap opera showrunners politely ask, guys, please don't overdo this. This time, Russian propaganda is trying to prove that Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy has a Russian passport issued in the temporarily occupied Crimea in 2015. Yes, 2015, back when Zelenskyy had no idea that in a few years he would become the president of Ukraine and that his face would be plastered on fake documents on Russian Telegram channels. Now, to make this sound legit, the propagandists wrote that the document was supposedly found by hackers. This obviously is supposed to make it seem more exciting than it really is. Picture the inevitable guy in a hoodie, silhouette backlit by lines of cascading matrix code, hands dancing on the keyboard as he does his voodoo. Lo and behold, he has unearthed this Photoshop monstrosity, and now we're supposed to believe it's totally legit. Never mind that, in fact, there is not even sufficient evidence that the hacker collective in question was real or has actually released anything. But even ignoring that, let's take a look at the document itself. And even at first glance, it becomes evident that there is something wrong with it. The form number isn't correct, the format is all wrong, the region code is again incorrect, and Zelenskyy's photo was taken during his presidency. Well, of course, why not insert a photo from 2020 into the 2015 passport? I know the typical audiences of Russian propaganda are not big on critical thinking, but this is just lazy. Also, according to Kremlin propaganda, Zelenskyy bought an apartment in Moscow in 2019. Given that it was during this period that Russia was already staging another round of aggression against Ukraine, starting in 2014 if you forgot, it seems as if someone actually thought, of course, after winning the election the Ukrainian president would immediately rush to Tverskaya to buy real estate, located right next door to the FSB, by the way. In reality, Zelenskyy never had and does not have any real estate in Moscow. But Russian propaganda only needs facts as decoration. Today, the increasingly desperate Kremlin is trying to sow distrust in the Ukrainian leadership, especially among international partners. That is why it churns out such absurd news stories, hoping that someone will take the bait. But the problem is that these fakes are evidently made by amateurs. It's sloppy work, simple as that. Makes you think of a student who comes into class without his homework and says, with fake contrition, "Can I bring it tomorrow? My dog ate Zelenskyy's passport." Vladimir Solovyov. Remember the guy? Sure you do. Barely an episode of Break the Fake goes by without him making an appearance. An absolute content mine, if you like your content wild, unhinged, and with a sprinkle of genocide talk. Recently, the guy said he's ready to challenge the Ukrainian president to a duel. Now, based on intelligence from Anatoly Shary, a pro-Russian blogger who fled Ukraine many years ago but never ceased trying to discredit Kiev's government, Solovyov claims that President Zelenskyy allegedly ordered the Russian propagandists to be eliminated. Oh, the plot thickens. Actually, it does not, though Solovyov evidently wants to play the victim, or a potential victim. Look, they are trying to kill me, he seems to be saying. Perhaps because losing expensive houses in Italy due to sanctions didn't earn him any sympathy.
Один из наших корреспондентов беседовал с Анатолием Шарьем, и Анатолий сказал, что, по его сведениям, Зеленский отдал приказ как раз Буданову и второму, с Данилом Бессоновым беседовал Анатолий Шарий, отдал приказ перебить информационную волну путем уничтожения российских пропагандистов уровня Симонян и Соловьева. То есть, ну вот, чтобы было понятно, как мыслит этот наркофюрер. Не понимая, что гибель любого из российских медийных персон никак не остановит, во-первых, продвижение наших войск, Мало этого, и мертвыми мы будем долбить нацистов. Уже наши имена, если угодно, послужат благой цели, консолидации общества и дополнительной решимости на уничтожение. А ты, если хочешь, давай дуэль со мной лично устрой. Можешь? Ты же рассказывал, что ты там с пистолетиком что-то умеешь делать. Ну, давай выйдем. Покажи мне, что ты умеешь. Ты же боишься, Зеленский, потому что ты трус.
So, Solovyov, in his usual manner of "I am brave as long as I am surrounded by security guards," suggested that Zelenskyy meet him in person and show what he can do with a gun. Which, honestly, is rather embarrassing. A guy casually calling for entire countries to be nuked on his show, now going full "notice me, senpai" on Zelenskyy and dreaming of gun duels as if it's War and Peace or something. I suppose the answer to that idea should be the exact same one that Trump gave to Putin recently. I don't want to have a wasted meeting. Also, now that Solovyov mentioned assassins, did you know that Russia tried to eliminate Zelenskyy on numerous occasions since the war began? Well, Ukrainians themselves report multiple attempts to deploy death squads of mercenaries into Kiev in 2022. And in 2024, a man was arrested in Poland over an alleged Russian plot to assassinate Ukraine's president during his visit there. But this is just the tip of the iceberg of Russia's trigger-happy attitude. Assassinations, you see, are the bread and butter of Moscow's secret services, whose oeuvre includes having Kremlin critics mysteriously fall out of windows, trying to take out their own ex-spy with a nerve toxin in the UK, and killing another one with radioactive tea. Some kills were rather over the top, like blasting Chechen leader Johar Dudayev with guided missiles, while others, like lacing Alexei Navalny's underwear with Novichok, were an exercise in sinister subtlety. But make no mistake, if there is any country that should look in the mirror before accusing others of cosplaying Assassin's Creed, it is definitely Russia. What do you do if the world just doesn't recognize your greatness? You can erect a monument to yourself, perhaps a golden, rotating statue like Mr. Niyazov, the late dictator of Turkmenistan, once did, or, as in the case of Margarita Simonyan, you can buy 80,000 copies of your own book. The propagandist decided that if readers did not want to pick up her work, then she would find hands to do so herself, her own hands. As a result, Simonyan created a new genre in literature, self-publishing with self-purchase, which is kind of impressive, although I would still go with the rotating golden statue if you ask me. According to Russian media reports, Simonyan printed nearly 90,000 copies of her work entitled Read City. But it turned out that even in the reading city, there were exactly 0 people willing to read Margarita's work. Perhaps Russians simply know how to protect their mental health. Unwilling to accept this obvious fact, Margot made a move. She bought up the entire print run herself and then solemnly declared that she was donating the books to a Russian government agency for foreign aid in order to pursue culture education abroad. Oh, that actually sounds like a warning, mostly to those living in Central Asia or Latin America, where the said agency actually operates. Prepare to be educated. Or better still, pretend you're illiterate and save yourself the pain. Formally, Simonyan can now say that her books have sold 88,000 copies. But what's the big deal? Does it really matter that half of the print run is still sitting in the warehouse and the other half is somewhere in Margarita's apartment, probably? Margarita Simonyan has proven that literature in Russia has a future, but only if authors buy up their own work in bulk and then pretend that this was the plan all along. Also, in your spare time, please dedicate a minute of silence to all the trees that suffered the indignity of ending up as Russian propaganda that won't make anyone happy, except perhaps those individuals who happen to own a fireplace. Yeah, definitely should have gone with a golden statue instead. At least that's the kind of cringe that has Wikipedia articles written about it. And with this we conclude this edition of Break the Fake. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates.